Hello, hello. Unmute.
I can't hear you.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
How are you?
Well, I just came in my art studio, so I'm a mess.
Hi, Jesse.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi there. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Carlos.
How's it going, Jesse?
Hi there. Good. Good to see you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Can you hear me well?
I can. Yes.
Okay, good. Good. Not too much echo?
No, not at all. Okay, so
Hmm.
let me see what happened.
Good stuff. Hello, Diana.
Hello, Carlos.
How are you?
Congratulations. This is my first Zoom call ever.
Oh, wow.
No way.
Yeah, I debated if I should even admit that.
It's like I think you're like probably among 1% of the population that didn't even try during the pandemic.
Well, you know, I'm trying to get to that other 1%ers. You know which ones I mean?
Yeah.
I think we all have expectations for that.
Yep.
1%.
Yeah, well, I had to start somewhere, so I started with no Zoom calls. So I'm in 1%.
1% is something, right?
Yeah. And I'm vaccinated, so hey, there's another percent.
Hey, you're ready
And I'm
to
ready
go.
to go.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
This is actually going to be my first Seabourn cruise too.
Fantastic.
That's
Yeah.
great. Oh, so you're already booked.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm booked. I pay Wednesday, and I'm going on 3 weeks for the tropical holiday.
Fantastic.
Hey, that's great. Diana, by any chance, were we lucky enough to be able to take care of you?
You mean you personal, not you, for your company,
Our
or
company?
you mean
Our
a
company.
travel agent?
And anybody from our company?
I spoke with a couple of people, but a travel agent actually booked it.
Okay.
But we like to call you at least once a day with a question.
Okay.
Like
All
what
right,
the
we'll see.
CDC, like what the CDC said this morning.
Right. Right. Well,
That's how
we'll talk about that.
I like to keep up on cruise news.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, Diana, I certainly want to make sure that we stay in contact with you, and hopefully we can take care of you. If we weren't the ones to take care of you on this one, then for the future ones for sure.
And my first cruise was in '67.
Oh, it's changed a little bit.
I was on the, are you kidding? I was on the France.
Wow, the France.
When it was the France.
You know, there's so much history on the cruising side. I mean, just in the past 40, 50 years, I mean, cruising has evolved so much that it is just amazing, but it still manages to keep the same charm and the same fact that you can actually, you know, visit all of these ports that you probably couldn't do on a land-based tour for the most part. So
Oh, absolutely not. You know,
yeah.
you'll laugh at this one. My first tour was even earlier than that. It was on Norwegian. It took 10 days to go across the Atlantic up by the Shetland Islands. And years ago, I was on a Norwegian cruise, and they had the oldest captain on the entire line was on board. So I went up and introduced myself and told him, I said, you know, as a college student, I took this across, you know, to study abroad. And he said, what was the name of the ship? I said, the Oslo Fjord. He said, oh, that was before my time. I said, give me a break. So,
All right.
and I'm still sailing, so here we go.
There you go. That's awesome.
Hi,
So,
Jesse. How you doing?
Hi there.
How are you, my
That sounds
friend?
like Steve.
Hey, Steve. Oh, yeah, there you go.
How are you? How's everything?
Good. You know, we're making it happen here. You know, being here in Miami, it almost looks like this. You
Hey,
know, kinda,
listen,
sort of.
you're probably on the ship by yourself. Can I get a cabin too, please?
You know, there's a little bit of space, but I'll be more than happy to offer it
Yeah,
up.
yeah, just a little bit, huh?
But you know, we have the Odyssey, and we'll talk about it
Yeah.
just off the coast here. So.
As I tell all my guests, listen, I don't even care if it's sailing. Just get me on a ship, and I'll
get
just
me
keep
on.
the chef, one of the cabin stewards, and a waiter. That's all. I don't.
That's all you need,
Anything else. Yeah, and the captain, I guess.
of course.
Yeah. So,
I
yeah,
need
I'll-
someone in a tuxedo to come to me and say, Mrs. Romano, would you like some more champagne?
There you go.
I've been
Well-
waiting for a year for that.
You know, we absolutely have that available. Now, when it will happen is a little tricky, but we have that available for you. That's for sure.
I know. Thank you.
Oh, Patricia, we're all in that same boat. But there's a lot of good news happening, and I'm gonna hopefully I have an opportunity to share with you guys a little bit about my most recent predictions about the industry. And but we're gonna let Jesse do a lot of talking and tell us about Seabourn, who hasn't officially published anything about an official restart, but I'm sure he'll be able to share some information with us, right, Jesse?
Well, you know, there's limited information right now. I know that we came upon a stumbling block, but there will be some really important news coming up, and that's as far as I can go. But probably in the next couple of days, there'll be some
That's
news.
fantastic.
Yeah,
That's fantastic. So, all right. So a little bit of a housekeeping comment. We have so far about 27 participants in our Zoom call right now. And we are expecting, what is it, Denise? Probably about 40 to 50, 60 people, you think? That will probably end up joining today. So it's 2:57. We will officially start at 3. We will probably allow for some people to continue to chime in all the way till 3:05, which is going to be when Jesse will actually start really giving us some juicy information. The idea here is we're going to conduct a short presentation where Jesse is going to share with us, you know, some exciting stuff about Seabourn, get us excited, get us get our juices going, and then we'll open up for some Q&A at the end. The official invitation for our event was set from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But we normally, when we've done this in the past, we normally go a little bit over the scheduled time. I'm not sure if Jesse, or do you have a hard stop at 4?
I do not.
Okay, good. So, you know, we'll hopefully try to be very respectful of everybody's time and try to keep it condensed and keep it, you know, very juicy. But if we happen to go over the time, that's okay too. We'll definitely not rush anybody off the Zoom at any time. Because at the end of the day, the reason why we do this event is because, you know, we stand true to our commitment and our mission to provide, you know, to make travel dreams come true. And this is just part of it, right? We want to keep a continuous communication with either our guests or our prospects or anybody that is in our list that follows us. You know, there's a lot of people in this Zoom event that might have already done business with us in the past. I see a lot of names in the list already from clients that have already done business with us in the past, some for many years already, and some that probably have not. And so we'll have an opportunity to also share with you guys a little bit about Luxury Cruise Connections and what we do and why we believe we're so special. And that's it. And then we'll take it from there. It's going to be a fun hour and so, right? So why don't we start with some, I guess we'll do this a couple of times till we get to 305. Let's see, we already have 39 people. That's good. That's good. So let me just share the following as well. In this Zoom event, you're going to see a lot of our guests. Again, a lot of the people that have done business with us, some have not, and that's okay. But you're also going to see many luxury cruise connections advisors, okay? They join also because they want to learn as well, but most importantly, because they want to be there for you, okay? So a lot of you are going to have a lot of questions, and we're all about personalized surveys. So you might see, or you might get one of our luxury cruise connections advisors sending a private message, making themselves available to you in case you have any private question, and private meaning specific to a particular cruise that you have already booked or that you have in mind. And then what we'll do is we'll keep the general chat room open for general questions, okay? So the idea is throughout the event, Jesse's going to say a lot of stuff and you might have questions. Please feel free to type them in the chat box, okay? All the questions that you type in the chat box are going to be addressed at the end of Jesse's presentation and during the Q&A session. If you sent us questions prior to the event, I'm not sure, Denise, do we have any questions prior to the event? We have a few? Okay, perfect. So all those questions are going to be also addressed at the end of the presentation. So, and if you, for whatever reason, have to jump off the event, no worries. We will send a recording of the full event right after. We're just happy you're here at any point in time, okay? So let's see, 45 people so far. Also, please know that right after our name, so anybody that belongs to the Luxury Cruise Connections company, you're going to see a dash Luxury Cruise Connections right next to their name. And Jesse has a dash Seabourn right next to his name. And then anybody else is our guests to our event, okay? So if you, many of you might recognize your Luxury Cruise Connections advisors, so feel free to say hi. And by the way, we're going to try to keep everybody muted throughout the entire event. And then what we'll do is the first set of questions, I'll read them and I'll ask them on your behalf to Jesse. And then we'll open up mics so that you can also ask some questions live and make it a little bit more interactive as well. Okay. So, by the way, any event that we get over 40 people, like this one, for example, we already know we're going to have a lot of very good interaction. There's a lot of pent-up demand for sure. I don't know, Jesse, I'm sure you guys are feeling the same on your call centers, but our phones are going crazy.
Absolutely, Carlos. I can tell you that really as of about February, we started to see a real uptick in business. A couple factors. I think the fact that the vaccine has been rolling out quite well, considering more and more people have been vaccinated. And I also, on the Seabourn side, we've come out with much more inventory than we have in the past. In previous years, we were still probably working on 2021 itineraries, but now we have 22 and into 23 and some of our world cruise and long voyages. So there's much more inventory. So there's more to actually sell as well. So we have seen week by week incremental increases in our business, which is fantastic considering the year that we all had last year and really the beginning of this year.
Yeah, and what's interesting is on at least on our end, on the side of the agency, we if we look at our last 30-day numbers, we are booking twice as much as our average booked business for 2019. So, I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, obviously, nothing's sailing. So in terms of revenue and income, it's a different story. But in terms of booked, hey, Mike, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Excellent. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Great. I'm having a trouble getting the picture, but I hear what's going on.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So anyway, so yeah, so that's very very encouraging. Why don't we do this? So it's 3:04. We'll kind of officially get started by 3:05. We'll make some basic introductions right now. Go over a little bit about what's going to happen today, and then Jesse, I'm going to be a little bit unorthodox here. I know we normally start with a presentation, but there are some pressing questions that I think a lot of people are going to have. So if you don't mind, let me address those
Sure, sure.
from the beginning. Okay, so anyway, so 3:05, officially getting started. Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. This is our Seabourn Zoom call, cruise evening or cruise afternoon, however we want to call it. But this is an incredible space to be able to share with you guys some exciting news and some exciting stuff about Seabourn and about what's going on with Seabourn's Global Plus and the cruise industry in general, and to answer some questions and so forth. So a little bit of official introductions. Jesse, that you all see here in the screen. Jesse, go ahead and say something so you pop up in the center of the screen.
I'm right here.
There you go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
So, Jesse, your title at Seabourn is?
I'm the key account manager for Seabourn here in the southeast side of Miami.
There you go. And Jesse, just to put it in perspective, is that one person within Seabourn that makes all the magic that we're able to pull through happen. Jesse,
I try.
Jesse has done an incredible job at.
Yay, Jesse.
I have my fans.
There you go. No, you've done an incredible job at making sure that our business with Seabourn grows. And we absolutely love growing our business with Seabourn because you guys do an incredible job and are able to deliver the level of service that we believe in and that we believe luxury cruising is to be about. Luxury Cruise Connections, for those that are maybe not much aware of us, I mean, obviously we are a full-fledged travel agency. We focus in cruises. We deal with all cruise brands, but we certainly have an incredible relationship with Seabourn, and that's why we're here today, so that we can share with you all the information that we have about the current global suspension of sailings and so forth. So like I said before, for those that were already here, anybody that belongs to Luxury Cruise Connections, you're going to recognize us because we have a dash Luxury Cruise Connections right next to our name. Jesse has a dash Seabourn next to his name. Everybody else is a guest. We're going to keep everybody muted while we do the short presentation that Jesse has to share with us, and then we'll open up for questions and answers. Anybody that has a question during the presentation, please type it in the chat box, and then we will address each one of them. All the questions that we received prior to the event, we will address each one of them, and then we will open up the mics for some additional questions at the end. We will try to keep this between 3 and 4 p.m. Eastern, but we will most likely go a little bit over. So just in case, if you do need to log off at any point in time, don't worry. We do record this event, and we will send it over to you all when we are done later, either today or tomorrow. So to get started, again, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. We have a question that and kind of addressing a comment that Diana made earlier. There has been some information about the CDC, and with no cruises until November. And I want to explain what that really means and what that really is, so that everybody can just enjoy this presentation knowing that it's going to be okay. So basically what happened is the CDC had a no-sell order that expired in October. When we got to October of 2020, the cruise line, the CDC allowed for what they call the conditional sell order, which basically changed from a no-sell order to 3 phases that had to happen so that cruise lines could get back to the waters. These phases, once past phase 1, this was supposed to be a 90-day deal, right? So cruise lines were basically getting ready to get an okay on that phase 1 sometime last week, so that they could basically get back on the waters by July, as they were expecting. As that was happening, at the same time, CLIA and the cruise line industry went over to the CDC and says, guys, situation and the conditions have changed dramatically with the vaccination process and whatever in the last couple of months. can you guys just lift the conditional sale order, right? They basically wanted to not have to complete phase 2 and 3 of the conditional sale order. The CDC at that point said, no, we're not going to lift the conditional sale order, but and in fact, we are going to keep it in place until November. It does not mean that cruise lines cannot sail. By the way, it does not mean that the cruise lines cannot sail at all. All it means is cruise lines cannot depart or touch the United States, okay? It also means that cruise lines have to go through phase 2 and 3 before they can sail from the US. So it does not mean that they will not sell until November from the US, but it does mean that in order to be able to sell from the US prior to November 1st, they have to go to phase 2 and 3. And the CDC has not taken any of the cruise lines through phase 2 and 3. So they were asking for that conditional sale order to be removed. That didn't happen. And they came out with this news, scary news, saying they cannot sell until November. Well, that's not exactly accurate. Cruise lines will be able to sail. In fact, and I know that this is not relevant to Seabourn particularly, but I will share that companies like Royal Caribbean and Celebrity have already announced some official departures from ports outside of the United States. And so we have, and this is all over the news, right? We have Royal Caribbean ships departing out of Bermuda and Nassau, and we have Celebrity ships officially departing from San Martin and Athens in June, right? So all these ships are going to sail in June. Now, I know this is not relevant to Seabourn, but it is relevant to the cruise line industry. Jesse works for Seabourn. Obviously, he is under an NDA. And because I don't have official information, I can say whatever I want. Right, Jesse?
You're right. You're absolutely right. I can just nod.
Exactly. You can just nod. So what's going to happen is Seabourn, as well as the other cruise lines, are going to start announcing official departure dates from a whole bunch of different ports outside of the United States, because the cruise line said, you know what, CDC, if you're not going to let us sail, that's okay. We know we're safe. We've proven it. We have over 4,000 cruise passengers that have sailed with us in the last couple of months. I'm sorry, 4,000 sailings that have sailed, right? I can't even remember the number anymore. Anyway, a lot of cruise sailings that have already sailed from Singapore, from Europe, from Italy. Some they're going to start sailing very soon out of Israel. And we have proven that the amount of people that actually catch COVID on board a ship is substantially less than the indexes on land. And so we know that we can conduct very safe cruising, and we're just going to go, right? And by the way, most of these itineraries that are being deployed or redeployed, because by the way, you're going to start seeing a lot of these itineraries suspending or changing because they're redeploying the ships from ports that are allowing tourists to come and countries that are allowing people to sail on. And you're going to start seeing a lot of these redeployments, and most of these original first sailings are probably going to be vaccinated, fully vaccinated ships. Now, is that going to be the norm throughout the entire rest of the year? Nobody knows. My prediction is it's going to be toward the first several sailings, first months, for sure will require fully vaccination. And then we will see what happens as cases continue to drop and cruises continue to kind of get a hang of cruising under these conditions. And so with that, I hope I've appeased a lot of people. What's up, Steve?
I just want to reassure people that there's already cruises going. Royal Caribbean has been going out of Singapore the last 2 months with no issues, basically.
Exactly.
So there are cruises going. So the light at the end of the tunnel is there.
Exactly. And like I said, all these itineraries have been sailing with full, with not even fully vaccinated people, but very stringent conditions. And so they've proven to be extremely safe. In fact, there was an article very recently about somebody that went on board a river ship in the Mississippi, and he was sharing the entire experience, and he said it just feels a lot safer than being on land. But anyway, without further ado, Jesse, take it away.
Thank you, Carlos. And you made a lot of very relevant and actual points that are going on right now in the industry. And you are correct. Right now, I cannot share too much information because frankly, we don't know fully what's going to transpire in the next couple of days, but I can kind of just tease that, as you mentioned earlier, Royal Caribbean and Celebrity have already, put their foot in the door about sailing and being part of the Carnival brand, as you can imagine, and the Norwegian brands as well. No, we're not going to stay behind. So you're right. Eventually, we'll all kind of follow suit. And I got to say though, a lot of this was already scheduled, particularly earlier in the year. So now it's just the fact that, as you mentioned, we've just said, okay, we're just going to move forward with our plans, regardless of what the CDC has to say. So let me share my screen quickly here.
And by the way, a lot of these countries, not every single country is opening their doors for cruising, right, but there are many countries that are, and those that are going to welcome the ships with open arms, and hopefully, as everybody's fully vaccinated, it's just going to be a very safe experience.
Agreed. Well, I just want to say again, welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for participating in this afternoon's call. And a special thank you to Carlos and everyone at the Luxury Cruise Connection. I mean, it really is a pleasure. I work with a lot of travel partners in the US, but there are some that are very special to me. And definitely this is one of the accounts that I hold in high esteem because from the top down, everyone is a professional. And I think everyone who's dealt with an advisor or with Carlos or with Denise or anyone would know that this is a top-notch company. And when I travel, I will be using Luxury Cruise Connection. Let me give you an endorsement there, right? So let's get started here because I do have quite a bit of information to share with you. So let's start first and foremost about the health and safety protocols. So, we do have health and safety protocols that have been established for quite some time, but the reality of this is that these protocols were established back in November or October. So by the time the ships actually begin to sail, they will probably be updated more than likely. So they are available for you to review with your travel advisor, can get you that information, but take it with a grain of salt because again, these will be updated as we begin to start sailing, hopefully sooner than later. Moving forward, let's talk a little bit about who Seabourn is in our fleet. So you may know that we have the newest fleet in the ultra luxury market. And what that means is that even though the company is well over 30 years old, our ships are quite new. In 2009, we built a new Seabourn fleet. We started, which is the Seabourn Odyssey. And shortly after, the following year, we built the Sojourn and the Quest. These vessels within the ultra luxury market are still quite small. So we are, again, playing in that very unique field where we have 458 guests on those 3 vessels. So you're talking about a service that is just beyond what you would expect. I mean, it does exceed expectations. The ship itself are beautiful. They're also identical, which is great. So if you've been on an Odyssey and you return the next year and sail on the Sojourn on the Quest, you're basically on the same ship. So a lot of our guests feel very familiar coming back to Seabourn. These vessels, 90% of the suites, and these are all oceanfront suites, have verandas. These Odyssey class vessels, a few do have window suites, but the vast majority are with veranda. Then most recently in 2016, we built the Encore class, and we followed that up with the Ovation. And those are a bit larger with 300 guests. And we'll talk quickly about the Venture, which is the expedition ship, and the new expedition ship that's going to follow the Venture. But let's talk a little bit more about the Odyssey class. So these are the original 3 ships that we built. And again, you'll see here beautifully classic lines. You'll notice that the suites are primarily forward and midship, which is really where you want to be on a ship. The public rooms are aft. These vessels have 2 pools. There's a casino on board as well. You'll see here the suites that, as I mentioned, 90% of those have verandas. And you'll notice just under the verandas, we have a couple of window suites, but we have no inside suites on Seabourn. That's just not what we do and what our guests are accustomed to. And then the Encore class is almost identical to the Odyssey class, except being a bit larger. There's an additional deck here. And these are all 100% veranda suites. So you never have to worry about a window. Here, when you're booked from a V1 all the way to a V4, you're booking a veranda suite. You'll also have here an additional restaurant that we'll talk about on the larger Encore class vessels. But again, the layout is pretty similar to the Odyssey class, with the suites being forward and also midship. So speaking of the suites, take a look at this. These are our suites that average about 300 square feet, as you see here. This picture is on the Encore. And you'll notice that they're beautifully laid out. You have a separate sitting area. There's also a bar with 2 bottles of spirits that we replenish during the course of the voyage. There's a bottle of champagne. But what I love the most is the bathroom. Take a look on the right-hand side. That is the typical bathroom on all of our Seabourn ships. So you'll find 2 double sinks. There's a tub and shower as well. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful accommodation. And again, this is the entry level for all of our ships on Seabourn. And then if you need a little bit more space, we do have some larger suites, and these are penthouses. So they are a bit larger. And what you'll notice here is there's a separation between the bedroom with doors. So if a guest is actually sleeping, they can actually close those doors while their traveling companion can sit outside and watch television or have breakfast maybe brought in from room service. And the terraces are quite large as well on the penthouses. And then, of course, we have owner suites. The owner suites, there's 2 of them, and these are, again, even larger than the penthouses, 525 square feet here. These are more of an apartment layout. So the guests that are typically in the owner suites, what they will do is they will host a cocktail party, because why not? You're in a suite. Everyone wants to know what the suites look like. So if you can manage to find those who are staying in the suites, you want to become their friends, because they typically, we will send a server down to actually host a cocktail reception for guests here in the owner's suite, as well as the signature suite and the winter garden, which tend to be the largest. So, very few number of these suites, but they are available. This one is the signature, about over 860 square feet. And take a look at that terrace. The terrace is almost double the size of one of our veranda suites alone. And then you have the granddaddy of them all, which is the Winter Garden Suite here. And you'll see on the bottom left-hand side, you do have a spa, which, of course, you don't want to be taking a bath in this when we are in port. You want to do this when we're sailing or when we're at sea. But you have a fantastic view. So if you can imagine you're sailing and you want to go ahead and take a beautiful soak in the tub, that is part of the Winter Garden Suite. And you'll see the other aspects of it, the sitting area, the bedroom, and that large bathroom as well. So there's a large variety of suites on board all of our vessels. Next thing that's very important is the cuisine. When you're talking about cruising, you want to have a great accommodation, but you also want to have fantastic cuisine, and we're able to offer that on Seabourn. So we have multiple dining venues, really, for the size of the ship. We have a lot. So we have, of course, the main restaurant, which is the restaurant that's open for lunch and for dinner. We have typically one formal night every 7 days. That formal night will be primarily here in the main restaurant. The other restaurants will not be formal. So if you chose not to dress up that night, it's not a problem. We also have the colonnade, which previously, before COVID, was the area with the buffet. Now, we've been told that that area, it was also an a la carte as well, so you could also order off the menu. We will still have the buffet area style, but you will have a server on the other side actually serving. And I think that's the way we'll be moving forward. The patio is up in the pool deck area. We also serve lunch there. And at nighttime, that opens up as a third restaurant called Earth and Ocean. So you have 3 dining venues, and then the 4th one is the grill, which is the Thomas Keller grill. And for those of you that are foodies, you probably know who Chef Thomas Keller is. And we do have a Thomas Keller grill on board all 5 of our vessels. He is Michelin star restaurateur with the French Laundry over in Napa Valley. If you've been there, kudos to you. It's very hard to get a reservation. You have to wait typically weeks, if not months, to get in. But on Seabourn, all of our guests will have an opportunity to dine at the Thomas Keller Grill. When I sailed about a year and a half ago, I was on the Sojourn, so the Thomas Keller Grill is a bit smaller, a little bit more intimate, and they served, they actually did the Caesar salad tableside there. They prepared it for us. We ordered lobster thermidor. There was a beautiful bottle of wine. It was just an incredible experience that complemented the ship. And again, that is available on all of our vessels, in addition to room service. And when I say room service, I don't mean that we come to your suite and drop off the plates and then leave. We're talking about there's a table in all of our suites, and we set it up with linens. We also put all of the crystal and the silverware, and we prepare it professionally if you choose to dine in your suite as well. Now, anybody here like caviar? Yeah, you know, caviar is a, there you go. I see a lot of hands up. So on Seabourn, caviar is included all the time. So if you enjoy caviar, feel free to order it. We offer Regis Ova caviar, which is the caviar preferred by Chef Thomas Keller. A lot of our guests tend to order champagne and caviar before dinner as they're getting dressed, as just a little way to get the evening started. And you can do that. We also serve caviar in some of our beach parties, and then our pool deck area when we're in certain areas, like for example in Alaska. Now here's a picture of the Thomas Keller Grill. This is actually on the larger vessel. So again, on the larger vessels, the public rooms are bigger. So what you'll get at the grill by Thomas Keller on the Encore and the Ovation is there's actually a piano bar, and even if you don't have a reservation that night, you can actually come down to the piano bar and have a cocktail here at the grill. On the smaller Odyssey, Sojourn, and Quest, you don't have that option because the restaurant is much smaller, much more intimate, but you do here do have that available on the Encore and on the Ovation. Another great thing about Seabourn is in our partnerships is our partnership with Dr. Andrew Weil. Now, Dr. Andrew Weil is the health and wellness guru who has actually appeared on Oprah. He's appeared on Dr. Oz, and he kind of set himself up as the health and wellness guy. And we signed a contract quite some time ago with him to offer a healthy living program on board. So if healthy living is up your alley, is what you're interested in, we are able to offer that experience to you in our spa area. So we do have a health and wellness trainer or teacher that's on, but we also do Pilates. There's a huge gym. We do yoga. In the spa, we have all types of treatments that are available as well. So if you love the spa, or if you take vacations based on spa, you absolutely will not be disappointed on any of our Seabourn ships. Another affiliation is if you're into history. If you love history, if you love preserving some of these ancient world sites, we are the official cruise line of UNESCO. And what that means is that we visit well over 150 UNESCO sites that you can purchase an excursion to. And these sites, typically when we visit them, the excursion is hosted by a UNESCO, someone from UNESCO, or for example, it'll be the curator of a museum. So we potentially can come in early in the morning before the crowds come, or come in the evening. I know that in Ephesus over in Turkey, what we do is in the evening after everyone's gone, our guests arrive, and out by the library area, we're serving cocktails and we're serving caviar and canapes, and the Aegean band is playing orchestra. So it's a very, very unique experience that we're able to offer. And that is just in that part of the world, but we do it everywhere. Angkor Wat, you name it, we have a UNESCO excursion. And what I love about this is that we give back. So a part of the donation, a part of what you pay for the excursion goes back to UNESCO. And to date, we've given well over $1 million back to preserve all of these sites. So you will be participating in that program as well, should you take a UNESCO excursion. So this is just, this is a little bit just as Carlos mentioned, this is right now our expected return to service. We've had a couple of pauses. Most recently, we paused voyages in the Mediterranean up until July 3rd. The Encore, the Sojourn, the Ovation, and the Quest right now are anchored off of Limassol in Cyprus, and they're awaiting instructions to move forward. And the Odyssey is actually right off the coast of Fort Lauderdale, as I mentioned earlier. She was scheduled to do Alaska this year, but unfortunately that could not happen. So these are the official start dates that we have now. Now, none of this is set in stone. This is just the dates that we've determined. I see Carlos wants to, do you want to add something on this, Carlos? Oh, maybe not. These are the dates that we have set for return. But again, take these with a grain of salt because there will be some action happening before these dates. Now, in a normal year, our Seabourn vessels visit all 7 continents. So 22 and 23, you'll see the itineraries. We do everywhere from Antarctica, which, by the way, we will be visiting hopefully at the end of this year on the Quest, up to Alaska in our summertime, up to Greenland, Asia, Mediterranean. We do world cruises that we'll talk about in some of these longer voyages. So we are wherever you want to visit. So whatever you can think of, the destination that you can think of, that is where a Seabourn ship you'll find. So in 2021, we'll just talk about this quickly because in 2021, when we do return, as I mentioned, Mediterranean is on the docket. And just wanted to highlight some of the ports of call that we would typically sail to in the Mediterranean. And what I want to bring your attention to here is that you may be familiar with some of these ports, but there's probably a number of ports here that you may not even know. And that is simply because when you're on a small vessel like Seabourn, you're able to access some of these harbors and some of these coves that you're unable to get to on the larger vessels. So for example, in Italy, in Amalfi, I'm sure if you haven't been to Amalfi, or if you have, you know, it's a spectacular location in Italy. Most of the big ships will take you to Sorrento, which is the big port city. You'd get on a bus and then you'd go down to Amalfi. Well, on the Seabourn vessel, we anchor off the coast of Amalfi, and we have our tender service that takes you from the ship directly into the city. So that allows you to be able to either take an excursion if you chose to, or just walk around the town. I mean, Amalfi, you don't have to take an excursion if you don't want to. I mean, there's just so much to see right there in town. The same thing up in Porto Venere, up in Northern Europe, in Northern Italy, I should say. That is the home port for Cinque Terre. So there's only one ship that's allowed off that port, which is anchored. And Seabourn, it's typically a small vessel. Seabourn will offer that port of call and will also offer you the opportunity to visit Cinque Terre. So again, these are just some of the advantages that you're going to get when you have a smaller vessel. Most of our voyages tend to be between 10 to 12 days, but we do have a few 7-day departures that we are expecting for 21 as well as 22. So speaking of 22, let's move forward into the horizon and we'll talk about what we have up for 22. First off is Alaska. So I think that when you think of Alaska, you don't always think about Seabourn, but I can tell you if you're looking for a unique experience, we are the product for you. The vessel that will be up here is the Odyssey with 458 guests. What that means is a small ship experience in Alaska. We will be sailing much closer in the inside passage than you'd be able to get on a much larger ship, even on a 1,000-passenger ship. So we've been asked what side of the ship, starboard or port side, should I be on for Alaska to see the most? Either one, it doesn't matter because we are deep in the inside passage, so you actually have a fantastic view from both sides. These are some of the itineraries that we have for next year. They're based out of Vancouver, whether it's a Vancouver to Juneau 7 days or it's a Vancouver round trip for 11 days. We're able to offer a very special experience. We even have a couple 14-day itineraries, and with Seabourn, for example, one of the highlights is Misty Fjord, where I don't believe that most of the big ships have access to, but because we're small enough, we're able to anchor just off of Misty Fjord and offer what we call the Seabourn Venture program, which is kayaking in Misty Fjord. I mean, who does that? I mean, most of the big ships are just kind of sailing by, but we offer kayaking, we offer zodiacs as well to get up close to the wildlife. And I should ask that we do offer a caviar and champagne party here in Alaska on the pool, in the pool deck area. So again, Caviar is always free flowing with us at Seabourn. In 22, we're also excited to return to Canada and New England. And this is an itinerary that we knew we couldn't do this year in 21 because of the CDC, but we are all set to go in 2022. And we have some spectacular itineraries. Now, this part of Canada, of French-Canadian Canada, is very, very different than you'll find in some of the other parts. But the great thing is we're leaving out of Montreal. Montreal has great air options versus Quebec City. Again, this is a small ship, the Quest, so we're able to sail down the St. Lawrence comfortably. We do offer, the first voyage is August 29th, I believe. Yes, August 29th from Montreal to New York. And then we do have a round trip Montreal on the 22nd of September, which is probably around the peak time for fall foliage. And then I draw your attention to the center one, which is the repositioning. But really, if you're living up in the Northeast or if you're up in the Canada region, this is a great way if you're a snowbird to come down to Florida, being able to get on board the ship in Montreal and eventually making her way down to Miami with incredible stops, including an overnight in New York City. So, I mean, these are, again, very special itineraries that we were unable to get to this year in 2021. 22, Mediterranean. You saw all those ports that I showed you. Well, guess what? There's even more ports that we're going to be visiting on top of that in 22. There's over 27 destinations that are either maiden calls or first time, or they're ports of call that we haven't been to in quite some time. We've also listened to our guests on board, and many of them wanted to spend the night. So as great as the food is on board and the experience, they want to be able to overnight and go down to Paris if we're off the coast of Rouen. If we are in Bordeaux, they want to be able to maybe dine in Bordeaux as opposed to dining on board the vessel. So we have allowed that, and you'll see multiple overnight options in our itineraries in the Mediterranean. And wherever we don't have an overnight, we will stay until at least 11 p.m. So we can offer the guests the maximum opportunity to just immerse yourself in the culture and be out late. We don't want to have to, pick up anchor at 5 o'clock and be sailing all that time. We want you to be able to enjoy the port. Here are just some information on where the ships will be next year. So the Seabourn Sojourn will be primarily in the Western Mediterranean, visiting the beautiful French and Italian Riviera, as well as making a couple stops in Northern Africa as well. We even have a Canary Island itinerary that will be available for our guests from Lisbon to Las Palmas. So we're excited about returning. Western Mediterranean is the jewel. And most people tend to go to Western Mediterranean first. That tends to be their first experience. Spain, Italy, and Spain, France, and Western Italy. And then the Quest, we're back to Venice. And I mean, that's going to be exciting. We have not sailed round trip Venice in over 5 years, so we're back. So we will have some fantastic itineraries. I didn't include them in this presentation, but I was online and I was able to find an itinerary. It's a 21-day voyage. It was round trip Venice that stopped in Slovenia. It had 5 ports in Dubrovnik. It went up to Montenegro and Kotor, down to Athens, over to Syracuse in, the name eludes me. Sicily, there it goes. Also including Malta as well. All of this in a 21-day, and it was just a spectacular itinerary. I think that's what everyone is looking for when you're talking about luxury cruising, particularly on a small vessel. This vessel will, the Quest will eventually make her way over, and she's the ship that will be visiting Canada and New England later next year. And then we have the Ovation, which is a larger vessel, and we're going to be up in Northern Europe with her, and we'll be offering voyages that include 3 days in St. Petersburg. We'll be sailing up the North Cape in Norway. We'll also be going up to Iceland as well. So there's a lot here for you to digest in 2022 as far as itineraries are concerned. And then finally, the Encore, which is the sister ship to the Ovation, the 600 guest vessel. We're going to be visiting the Eastern Med, and we'll be visiting the Holy Land. And again, we have not been to the Holy Land in quite some time. So we will have departures from Athens, Istanbul, Haifa, and also Venice that will offer some very, very unique itineraries in that part of the world. So I know that your advisors at the Luxury Cruise Connection can absolutely give you some more details on that. So let's talk quickly about our new vessel. It's an expedition ship, and this is the Seabourn Venture. And as you'll see just from the outside, she looks very different than our traditional vessels, and that's on purpose because she is an expedition ship. Here are some of the statistics on her. We expect her to debut in December of this year. 132 suites, 264 guests. So that is about half the size of our current vessels now. So a nice small ship experience. This is a P6 polar class vessel, which just means that the hull is able to navigate through light ice. So that means that we're able to navigate up in the Arctic as well as Antarctica, which is where she will be visiting, among other locations. These are all oceanfront veranda suites. We'll have 2 custom submarines that we'll show you. We'll have a 26-person expedition team that'll be available all the time on board, and we'll have multiple Zodiacs, and we'll have lots of water toys on board this particular vessel. And she is built for expedition. We will have 3 levels of suites. We will have the veranda suites that we have on our ships, traditional ships. We'll also have the penthouses, and then we'll have the winter garden suite, which is a 2-level suite as well. And again, you'll just see here that just the layout of the ship, we have lots of deck space. You'll find that a lot of expedition ships do not have a lot of deck space, but we purposefully built the ship with an excessive amount of deck space because we want the guests to be outside and be able to enjoy as much as possible whenever we are in these remote locations. This is just a mock-up of the Discovery Center, and this is where our expedition team will speak to our guests before the expedition that morning, or after everyone returns, where we'll sit down and talk about what we saw that afternoon. We will not have any shows here on the expedition, and I think that's okay because guests who are sailing on an expedition product are not expecting a Las Vegas show. So we will be using this area for lecturers as well as for our expedition team to speak to our guests. And then here are some of the pictures of our suites. You'll see here on the left-hand side is a rendering of the veranda suites. Very similar, except the dark, you'll notice the different tones of colors in the suites here versus the panorama suite on the opposite side, which is also a new category for Seabourn. So if you can envision yourself waking up in the Arctic or down in Antarctica and having an incredible view, that would be just something that I think we're all missing at this point. We will have 2 submarines on board. The submarines will accommodate 6 guests each. They'll go down almost 1,000 feet, and we'll be able to explore not just the top of the ocean, but also under the sea as well. And we're hoping to really get a lot of traction with the submarine. It will be an additional cost. We don't know exactly what the cost will be. The excursions generally on an expedition vessel are included, but I do know that the kayaks as well as the submarine will not be included. This is the first voyage of the vessel, and this is the Norwegian winters, as we call them. So we're hopefully going to see the northern lights up here, and this is sailing up to northern Norway. And then once this voyage is over, we will begin this December going up to visit the northern lights, and you'll see itineraries from 12 to 14 days going up from Copenhagen to Tromsø. I'm hoping that we'll be able to use our submarines because there has to be some Viking wreckage off the coast of Norway that we can enjoy. And then the bottom right-hand side is what the itineraries will be in the future when we go up to Svalbard for the polar bears. So basically the ships will be in the Arctic in the summer, our summertime, and then they'll be heading southbound and visit South America. Eventually the Venture will go down to Antarctica, and in 2022 into 2023, she'll be visiting Antarctica. And then we also have a very unique voyage in the Amazon River. And when we say Amazon, most ships go to Manaus, which is great, but we actually go to Iquitos in Peru. So we're actually going all the way towards the end of the Amazon River. So there are some unique opportunities there with the brand new ship, the Venture, going that deep into the Amazon. And again, your advisors can give you some more details on that. As far as our deployment here, so this is just an idea of, you're going to see a lot of itineraries coming out with your travel partners, so stay tuned. If you're looking for voyages late into 22 and 23, the advisors will give you the details on that. So by the time we get to September, we should have just about up until 2024 available for you to be to book as well. So lastly, we'll talk about our longer voyages, which is this is our grand cruise, and this came out a couple weeks ago, and this is in the Seabourn Odyssey, 65 days. As a matter of fact, let me backtrack here. This is not out officially yet. We're only taking waitlist on this. It's due to open up at the end of this month, and this is a beautiful 65-day from Vancouver down to Sydney that visits all of the South Pacific Islands, Tonga, Bora Bora, Papeete in Tahiti. It's going to be a spectacular itinerary, but it is 65 days, so you got to have, you know, those 2 months available. If not, don't worry, because we have segments, so you can also do segments as well. You can also do segments here on this particular voyage, and make sure you speak with your advisor, because this is not open just yet. We're only taking wait list on this itinerary. And then we have the 23 World Cruise, and that also came up most recently as well, about a month and a half ago. It opened into our system, and that's from Miami to Barcelona. And this is 140 days. So obviously it's a nice long experience, but if World Cruise is on your destination, on your bucket list, you have to consider this. It goes from Miami down to the Panama Canal to Peru. From Peru, it goes to Easter Island, all the way over to Sydney. And then instead of going to Northern Australia, it actually circumnavigates and does Southern Australia and ends up all the way on the west coast of Australia, making her way to Indonesia and then to Africa, and then sailing from South Africa all the way up to Barcelona. So we also have segments there as well. And then we also released recently the South America and Amazon voyage, and Antarctica, which is also, this is a 79-day, and this is round trip Miami that leaves on the same day as the World Cruise. And here too, we also have segments, so you don't have to do the full 79-day itinerary. So as far as the promotions, what we have going on right now, we have the Book with Confidence. So if you have any bookings that are sailing this year in 2021, you can be confident that any fee, if you decide to cancel up to 30 days before the voyage, we will offer you a future cruise credit, which means that you're never going to lose that money. And that is for voyages that are sailing this year in 21, not in 22. So make sure you keep that in mind. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable putting down your money for voyages for this year and 21. And then we have the early bonus savings here that if you pay in full by March 31st, which is right around the corner, you will get an additional 10% savings on your booking. So we do have some promotions. I can tell you that a lot of the promotions will be going away probably quite soon, simply because the demand, as Carlos mentioned earlier, is just beyond belief, frankly. So if you see a good deal, book it, because chances are if you wait too long, you probably will not have that deal available to you. So
that's a great segue. Thank you, Jesse. That's a great
Sure.
segue to the next comment that I had, which is, you know, right now, cruise lines are still being extremely flexible with cancellation policies, right? All of these bookings, and Jesse, why don't you talk 2 seconds about that real quick? What's the current Seabourn's policy in terms of being able to, you know, book with confidence?
Yes, so we implemented the Book with Confidence program last year, thinking that we were going to travel at some point. So what basically that program is, we're asking you to put money up on a voyage that may or may not go. So we wanted to make sure that you knew that that money was going to be safe. So the way the program works is you have up to 30 days before the voyage to actually cancel. Should you cancel and the ship actually sail, let's just say, and you decide to cancel for whatever reason, it doesn't matter the reason, we will offer you a future cruise credit for any monies that would have normally been penalized. So if you decide to cancel, let's say 50 days before the voyage, and you were in 50% cancellation, the cancellation 50% would be given to you as a future cruise credit that you could actually use on a future voyage.
All right, so nobody loses any money, and it just allows people to basically, you know, put a deposit on, you know, if you know you're going to want to sail with Seabourn, you put a deposit and at least block your cabin. I guess what I always like to tell my clients is, you know, when you put a deposit on a good deal, all you're doing is you're really basically giving yourself the choice of deciding whether or not you're going to be able to go or not. Because, you know, the next issue we're going to have in this industry is going to be availability. You know, we're already feeling it, right? And even with under the current circumstances where cruise lines have opened up inventory way beyond what they normally do, right? And we're now selling, and booking people into 2023, right? Even with that in mind, we're already feeling, it's just harder to find availability for our clients already, right? Because everybody that had a booked cruise in 2020 moved into 2021, then all the way to 2022 and beyond. So it's crazy. So, like I said, with this Cruise with Confidence program, you're guaranteed to not put at risk a single one of your, a single dollar, yet you do by yourself the choice of deciding whether or not you're going to go, right?
Absolutely.
So, go ahead, Jesse.
No, I was just going to agree with you. And the times are, no one really knows what's going to happen. So, why would we penalize you? It doesn't make sense. That's not good business sense.
Exactly. Now, my prediction is that Cruise with Confidence program is probably not going to be around for too long. I predict that as soon as the first ship actually hits the water, that's going to be gone, right?
Well, yes, and it does not apply right now into 22 voyages. So make sure that you know that if you're booking something for next year, this does not apply to that. This only applies to 2021 bookings simply because the year that we're having, we're not quite sure what's going to sail or how comfortable people are going to be. Our guests are going to actually feel wanting to sail. So that's the reason that we implemented it for this year. And you're right, Carlos, as things begin to develop in 2021 and things start to sail and we see that it starts to get back to some type of normalcy, and then that policy will eventually be pulled. Now, those who are previously booked will be protected, but moving forward, it would change.
Of course. And I know many of you that are in our event today are avid cruisers, and you probably know this, but every year there's a season where we call it the wave season, right? Which is when the cruise lines really push the most marketing out to try to get people booked as quickly as possible for the year. And usually that's when the cruise lines come up with kind of the strongest promotions and strongest offers, right? And then prices on a normal year would go up after March. Given the demand that is in place, the expectation is all those wave offers are going to expire on March 31st, and they're not probably going to come back. We're not going to see any strong offers all the way to next, I guess, holiday or something like that. Right?
And I would tell you from the Seabourn side, you are correct. Right now, we do have the signature savings event that is up until the 31st, but it is not going to be extended. And we will, some of the nuances at Seabourn coming up is we will include internet, which we have not in the past. The internet is typically, the minutes are included part of the signature savings program or some type of program. So when that cancels out, we will then moving forward offer complimentary internet. The suites will get unlimited, and then there will be, I believe it's 900 minutes for the guests in the other categories, but that is on the horizon moving forward. But as far as upgrades and shipboard credits, I think that at least for a while is going to taper down quite a bit.
Jesse,
yes,
I have a guest who's asking if they have a 2021 and they get an FCC, when do they have to sail by, or when do they have to book the new cruise by? Both of them.
Usually the FCC is valid for a year at the very least, so they would be able to book it by a year after they got it. I can say though that because of the year that we've had last year and this year, a lot of those FCCs that we issued last March have already expired, so we've just extended them. So for the most part, if we need to, we will extend it on a one-off basis, but you have 1 year typically to book. Not to use it, but to book. So for example, if you're booking something next year for 23, that's fine, but you have a year time frame to book to use that FCC.
All right. And that's good to know. Jesse, we're going to get into a lot of these questions that we have in the chat right now. And let me see, right on time, Denise, she's sending the poll, have you ever been on Seabourn? Getting about 80% of you have not been on Seabourn, which is very interesting and actually great news. That's a great opportunity for for you all to experience it. So why don't we make this easy? Jesse, who is Seabourn for? Like, what's the typical Seabourn client?
It's interesting because the typical Seabourn client would be someone who is relaxed, someone who does not enjoy a structured environment. We don't have a structured environment on Seabourn, so there is no rigid you have to wear this, you have to wear that. I mean, we don't have that on board Seabourn. A lot of our guests feel that they're, if you're a member of a country club or a yacht club, that type of atmosphere is what you feel on board. The crew know your name. Just by the fact that you have such a small number of guests sailing with you, you tend to create and form really incredible friendships that in many cases last for many, many, many years. But so I would say it's really those that are tired of the structured luxury cruise experience that you get with some of the other brands that are looking to be a little bit more free form. Doesn't mean that we are going to, the experience is going to be any less or any less luxurious. It's just luxury means something different for everyone. Luxury could mean white glove service for one. Luxury could mean being, for example, our suite stewardess, when you check in to your suite, she shows up with a silver platter with different soaps that you're able to use on the course. You can select the choice of soaps for the course of the voyage. So luxury is very subjective, but we think that if you like that country club feel, if you like the yacht club feel, if the fact that it's not a rigid experience, that is who we're looking for.
That's a good point there, Jesse. You make, right? The suite stewardess, right? You don't call them butlers.
We do not. No, we do not. We don't call them butlers. They don't really have the butler's job, so they won't unpack and that's okay. There are some other lines that do have that, and if a guest requires that, by all means, that is not a problem. But that is just not what we do at Seabourn. We don't have a butler service where someone is, opening opening your luggage. Now that doesn't mean that, again, that you won't have incredible service. It's a different type of luxury.
Right. It's a little bit more country club casual type of luxury, right?
Absolutely.
Good. All right. So let's get to some of these questions.
Okay.
Let's see.
CDC.
All right. We already addressed Stephen's.
This next
Janelle,
question.
do you see vaccinations becoming mandatory for the cruise industry? What's your take on that, Jesse?
I don't know, but I would think that they would be, at least for the time being. I just think that that's the way that the world is going right now. Now, does that mean that in 22 and 23 it'll be the same way? Maybe not. But I do think as we get up and running, there will be some type of requirements from the cruise line, and also from the ports that we're visiting too. I mean, if you take yourself out of the guest of the cruise perspective, if you live on one of these islands, or if you live somewhere in Europe and your numbers are starting to come down a bit, would you really want a ship with X number of people, and some may be vaccinated, some maybe not, roaming around in the cities? And I think it's going to be the wave, I feel, at least for 2021. Maybe moving forward, maybe not, but I think that will probably be a requirement to sail.
And I'm going to agree with you. I don't know if it's going to end up being a requirement from the cruise lines. I do think that the countries are going to start requiring it. At least what I think is, I wouldn't be surprised if the cruise lines kind of keep it around for as long as the CDC or the State Department considers this to be a pandemic or an epidemic at one point, right? So they'll downgrade cruising, the risk assessment for cruising and so forth, and then eventually things will change. But at least at the beginning, I do foresee, it seems that that's the trend for sure.
And also remember that right now kids are not being vaccinated, or teenagers. So not that we have any kids necessarily a lot, but we do get some children on board. So even if we do require full vaccination, there may be some kids on board that are not vaccinated. So all of that has to be taken into account as well.
I have a question from William. Is the CDC waiting for input from the cruise lines, or are the cruise lines waiting input from the CDC in order to get phase 2 or phase 3 for selling again at U.S. ports?
William, it is not the cruise lines. I can tell you that. I mean, we are banging at the door. We've been banging at the door for quite some time on the CDC to make these actions. We actually specifically brought the Odyssey in because part of the requirements to get to Alaska, since it was a U.S. port, was going to include the CDC having to come on and actually doing a mock sailing and that whole situation. So we are more than willing. All of us in the cruise lines are. It's just been the CDC who has been reluctant to move forward. And obviously we're in the industry, so it affects us, but they have their priorities, and maybe right now cruising is not one of them, which should be, but it's really not incumbent on us. We're right there with wanting to make this happen, and we can do it safely. As Carlos mentioned earlier, there's been thousands of voyages to sail last year, and with very few, if any, incidences of COVID. Last summer
Yeah.
ships were sailing and into now, basically. So
Yeah, it's to kind of add to that, just last week I was having conversations with some of the cruise line executives, and they were telling me that they were just days away from hearing back from the CDC and a green light for phase one. But I guess they got tired of waiting and started announcing all these itineraries from, and again, the fact that the CDC said that the conditional sail order is going to stay in place till November does not mean that they won't give green light for phase two or phase three, maybe as soon as next week. Nobody knows, right? Just at this point, the cruise line said, we're just not going to wait around anymore. Right? We have to get this going. We know we're safe. So, and Maureen is asking, will Seabourn have fully vaccinated crew when you return to sailing? What's the latest news on that, official news on that?
Again, since we haven't announced a return to service, we really don't know the details of that. I would assume if we're insisting that the guests be vaccinated, if that's the way we're moving forward, the crew would have to be vaccinated as well. But I think there'll be more information on that as we really come back to making the return to service. So maybe in a couple days or something like that, there may be more information. I don't want to get in trouble here. So, there would be more information, but officially right now, as I said, if we do require the guests, why would we not have the crew? I think. So I would think that yes, everyone on board will probably be vaccinated at some point, at least for this year.
Just to expand on that a little bit, there's been a lot of questions about, what's going to happen. How are the cruise lines going to actually get all these crew vaccinated, and how is that going to look to the world? We'll see what happens. But I do know that at least most major cruise lines, all the large cruise lines have already. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Have already kind of secured deals with all these pharmaceuticals to get those done. Interesting, to kind of share with you guys some of the results. Denise launched a poll for you guys asking if you would book your next cruise if the vaccine is mandatory for everyone, and 91% of you said yes. We know that the vaccine conversation is sensitive. And we know that there's some people that are totally against it, and that's totally to be respected, right? But hopefully, I guess at one point very soon we'll have an opportunity to not have to require that, as we said. Quick question, a little bit unrelated. I'll ask you, Jesse. Smoking on Seabourn, are ships smoke free 100%?
They're not. So we do not allow smoking inside the vessel. We do have a few designated areas outside. I know one off the top is out on deck 7, which is by the Seabourn Square. It has an actual exit outside, and then one side of the exit of the outside area is smoking. And there's about 2 or 3 sections on board the vessel, but it's all outside.
So not bothering anybody.
No, and not in your suite, obviously, and definitely not in your veranda. A lot of people think that because they have a veranda, you can just smoke and throw it out. But we saw, the consequences of that a couple of years ago with another vessel. So not even in your veranda.
Not even trying.
No.
What is Canada's position on cruising now, and what is the prognosis?
So Canada right now is still closed for cruising, and that was part of the reason why we all had to cancel Alaska, because at least with us at Seabourn, we had to call out of Vancouver, and it just was not going to be possible to do. I know that our sister brands at Holland and Princess tried to get something going out of Seattle, which is not too far from Vancouver area, and kind of bypass Canada, or at least figure out a way to stop in Canada for a couple hours and then continue moving on. But unfortunately, that did not come through. So right now, Canada's position is they have halted cruising until the beginning of next year, which really for us, at least it just affected the Canada season and the Canada New England that we knew that quite some time. So that's why we plan no Canada New England in 21. And plus the CDC was another reason why we didn't plan Canada New England this year, because it was going to take more than 7 days to get from Montreal to the US up to St. Lawrence.
Yeah.
See,
So I have a question from Ronald. Ronald seems to be ready to get on board a ship right now. Will Seabourn be announcing cruises for this summer closer to the US, like Bahamas? If so, when? Or should it book now with Crystal?
Ronald, are you putting me against the wall here? My back's against the wall here. What I'll say is that when I saw the news on Crystal and when I saw last week in the news on Royal Caribbean and Celebrity being part of the Carnival brand, I knew that we were not going to just say, okay, guys at Royal, and you go ahead and do it, and then you tell us how it is. You know, it's a very competitive market. So I can envision that the Carnival brands, including Seabourn, as well as the NCL brands at some point in the next couple weeks, will be following suit. I can tell you from our end, you know, we were already planning back in the winter a return into the Caribbean. Unfortunately, there was a ship that started off in November that, you know, had a COVID incident, and it just kind of blew everything away, and everyone just kind of shied away and they canceled it for the season. But I would not put Crystal just yet unless that's what you prefer. But if you like Seabourn, I would say just give us a couple days and let's see what happens.
Couple of days.
Couple days. I also see a question from William about the Black Sea. We don't have anything in the Black Sea, unfortunately, but hopefully that'll be in the future. We'll be visiting the Black Sea area, because that's another fantastic area to visit off the beaten path. But we don't have anything scheduled for 22 just yet.
Do you expect that to be the case for 23?
You know, could be. I'm not sure. You know, we try to diversify the itineraries as much as possible. Black Sea does have some incredible ports, Odessa, you know, but there also are some issues there as well with Crimea. So, you know, we also have to be very sensitive as well, because I think they're still kind of feuding and fighting with Russia. So, you know, obviously we're never going to put our guests or our crew in any danger. So we need to make sure that wherever we visit, that it is safe. But I haven't seen it in any of the documentation.
Jesse, since we're talking about destinations, I know totally different place from Black Sea, but I'm seeing Morocco to be very popular in the upcoming years. Do you see Seabourn doing a lot of Morocco soon?
Oh, absolutely. We have a lot of itineraries in Morocco that visit, particularly that Western, on the Sojourn, as a matter of fact, that does the Western Med. Next year, we do have multiple ports in Morocco, and Spanish Morocco as well, because it's a very diverse area. You know, of course, it is Morocco, but a part of it is very Spanish-like, because, you know, Spanish were there for many, many years. So you'll see many itineraries that have Morocco in place.
Very nice.
Tangier, Casablanca.
Nice. Bill is asking, what is the protocol for returning to the continental United States port should there be a guest that tests positive during a cruise? Just want to make sure we don't have to spend days, weeks, months sailing around the United States or until the U.S. authorities decide what to do when the ship can return.
Well, Bill makes a great point, because I think that was the downfall of the cruise industry last year was, you know, it happened on board and the news media took hold of that. And, you know, and the truth is that at that time, no one was sure what COVID was. They knew it was highly contagious, and that was part of the reason why no one wanted to let anyone, you know, none of the countries let any ships in, including the U.S. for quite some time. I think we've gone way beyond that at this point. Every country, unfortunately, has had COVID. So the protocols are now in place. Should someone become, and by the way, when we do sail, these protocols will already be in place. So, for example, if we are sailing, let's just say in the Caribbean, we are prepared that if someone were to get sick or were to show some type of of infection, that we would be able to place them in isolation. And then we would have agreements with all the islands that we visit, or all of the countries in Europe, wherever it is that we're going, where we can actually offload a guest. And it wouldn't be something foreign. It wouldn't be coming in, what is COVID? They would already know how to treat it. There would already be much more information. I think that's what happened last year, was that no one knew what COVID really was. And being the fact that it was so contagious, none of the countries wanted to take the risk of allowing a ship with a couple hundred people or that were infected, whatever the number was. But I don't think that that will be the case moving forward at all.
Yeah, and the ships get back to the waters, as you're redeploying or planning this itineraries, visiting certain countries or islands, again, one of the things to have in place is, will they let us in? And then number two is, will they let us offload a guest if there's a case?
Exactly.
Right? But that's kind of what has been happening with all these other Royal Caribbean sailings that have actually sailed in Singapore or different parts of the world. It's going to be in that sort of protocol, right? The cruise actually goes on. They offload the guests, and they just continue on. And most cruise lines have or are going to have in place a lot of contact tracing, right? Technology. So I know some cruise lines have either the bracelet or the app or whatever it is, but you're going to have a lot of contact tracing opportunities so that you can quickly isolate anybody that's been in contact with somebody that's been infected, and you don't have to actually stop the entire ship from cruising. You can just take care of those people. Okay, good. Kenneth is asking, what do you have to offer for single cruisers?
Well, Kenneth, I'll tell you, being a small ship, we are quite limited as far as singles. And what I mean by that is that we don't have any single suites. I know some other ships have suites that are just single for single guests. We don't have that on Seabourn. We do have single occupancy, which means that it can vary anywhere between 150 to 175%, and in some cases up to 200%. And quite frankly, I think in 22 and 23, because everything is looking really good. There's a lot of demand. You may find that the voyages may be at 200%, unfortunately. But we do have, speak with your luxury cruise luxury cruise connection advisor, because we do have a couple of voyages that do have a special single supplement that we can offer you, and they can kind of guide you into where to find that and the information there. But singles, it's always tricky. I live in South Florida. There's a lot of single people, single men, single women, and it's not ideal necessarily. And I know not everyone wants to pay 200%. It feels like they're being penalized, but when you're on a small ship, it's just hard to lose that revenue of an additional guest. So that's the reasoning behind the 175 or the 200%.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have a tough question here from Michael Carr. How you doing, Michael? Thank you for joining us. Tough question here. I've read reviews of different experiences and consistency between your various ships. Is to include level of service. Are you aware of it? And if so, what is being done to ensure consistency?
Well, I think, a lot of this is also subjective, I will say, and all of us on the lines, if you have more than one ship, chances are a guest will love one of them, and then they travel on another one, and all of a sudden, well, even though it's an identical ship, well, the service is not exactly the same. So, it's a little bit subjective, I got to say, but I do agree that there have been instances where I've seen, even with some of the other guests, where they prefer the Odyssey, for example, and then they come on the Soldier and say, well, I noticed that it was a little bit of a difference, whether it was in the service. And as soon as we hear that, we address that immediately. We have a fantastic corporate office that should you encounter any of those situations when you're sailing on one of our vessels, and contact your travel advisor and they let us know, we take notes. As you may not know this, but on every voyage, even though you see the crew smiling and you see them free flowing, they have a log in the back, and every single thing is logged. So if you've had an issue, if you have complained that the food is not to your liking, all of that is written down. So we do that with the purpose of wanting to go back and revisit that. Why was it that this food was not to the guest's satisfaction? Why was it that the suite stewardesses did not meet the expectations? So everything is written down. So we are consistently, after every voyage, going through all of our comment cards and speaking with our guests to ensure that there is a level of consistency. But again, some of it is I think is just when you get accustomed to sailing. I'll give you a good example. If you're on the smaller 458 guest vessel and you've been on the Sojourn or the Quest a couple of times, and all of a sudden you jump to the 600, you may notice that there's 200 more people on. So obviously the public rooms are a little bit larger. The service should not fail, but you may notice that it may not be exactly the same because you're accustomed to the smaller ships, or vice versa. You may be on the big one and then you go on the small, and the public rooms are smaller, and you may say, oh gosh, I can't believe the Thomas Keller grill is so big on the Encore, and on the Sojourn it's so small. So there are little inconsistencies like that it's just part of the fact that our ships are different sizes in many cases. But I think overall the level should be the same. And if anyone has encountered an issue from one ship to the other, please make sure you let us know. We can address it if we don't know.
I think there's a big level of responsibility there on the side of the travel advisor. I think that each cruise line is very different, and they cater to a very specific clientele, a specific type of guest, right? And I think the travel advisor's job is to make sure that we're putting the right guests in the right ship. I have a lot of guests, right, that because of their personality, who they are and what they like, tell me they will absolutely never sail on anything but Seabourn, right? And they'll say Seabourn is the absolute best, most luxurious cruise line there is. But again, like you said at the beginning or at one point in the conversation, right? Luxury is very subjective. Luxury is all about, what is luxury to you? And what is luxury to one is definitely not the same thing to another one. And so I can attest to that. And I will say, not everything's perfect, but that happens all across the entire industry. But what I do know is Seabourn's commitment to making it right for the client, right? Every time, again, things happen all over the place, right? Not and any, all sorts of different types of vacations even, right? So, but the commitment and the dedication and the effort that Seabourn makes to make sure they make it right for the client and that they correct whatever went wrong is on point. And that's why we continue to recommend Seabourn, because we know, it's most of the time it's about how you recover more than, right?
Absolutely.
Of the actual thing that happened.
Hey,
So,
Carlos, I have a question from one of Laura's guests, Ronald.
shoot,
Can I ask it of Jesse?
Sure.
go for it.
Okay. He had a cruise to Iceland booked with Seabourn, and he's wondering what Seabourn is doing because the question is, what is Seabourn doing to take care of existing bookings, not just new bookings? Do the credits apply if I was already using an FCC? And that's from Ronald.
So basically what he's saying is he booked the Iceland group with an FCC. And then if that voyage cancels, can we roll it over to a new FCC? If that's the case, yes. So if you've paid for a voyage that we canceled or that we paused, and you used an FCC, a future cruise credit, to pay for a part or the whole thing, obviously you will be able to, we will then, just reinstate the FCC again. And then you can use that again over and over. You'll have another year. It'll get another shelf life. So you'll have another year on top of that to be able to use. If I understand the question correctly.
I have
Ronald,
another
there? If
question.
you have a question, you can just open up your mic, right, Carlos?
Yeah, in just a second. I have one more that we got via email. I know that we've kind of talked a little bit about this already, but I'll ask anyway. When are we starting cruises with no masks, self-guided tours, and restrictions while cruising? And I'll address that real quick. Like we've been saying, there's no real answer. There's no accurate answer to that yet. But what we do know is that as long as the countries and the governments start easing their policies and their restrictions, and as soon as the numbers and and the cases are so low that it's no longer a threat to anybody, that's probably when we're going to start seeing that. Although it is very likely, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because the whole concept about masks on board ships and so forth has a lot to do with the current CDC guidance on and recommendations, right? So what I'd like to say is if right now the CDC says, well, if you're in an indoor situation, whatever, X, Y, and Z, do you have to wear masks? Then chances are, if you were on board a ship, that would be the recommendation as well, or the policy as well. But like we heard recently, the CDC said, well, if both people are vaccinated, then you don't need to wear masks anymore. Like we heard very recently, right? Then chances are that's going to be the same thing on board ships. Like, why would ships require for you to wear a mask if everybody's vaccinated when the CDC already said nobody needs to wear a mask if everybody's vaccinated? Make sense, Jesse?
Oh, no, absolutely. And, right now that's an evolving situation. I mean, COVID has been evolving since last year. And I think you hit the nail right on the head, Carlos, that, right now those are the CDC recommendations. Could they change? Absolutely. And what should they change? And then, of course, we would then also follow suit as well. And not just us, the countries around the world, Europe and the Caribbean islands and South America would also eventually change their perspective. But for right now, the truth is that when we come back to sailing, we want to come back as safe as possible. And I think that if we were to come back and say, oh, don't worry about it, no mask, and we don't have to require the vaccine, that wouldn't be a safe environment. There may be some guests who choose to still move forward, but there's a large part of the population. We need to make sure that we're ensuring it for everyone. So I agree with you, Carlos. I think that as the CDC restrictions change, we will then also have to change as well.
Yeah. Let's open up the mics then. Let's see who has some questions. Stephen made a comment, until COVID stuff is all behind us, why would you not want to wear a mask? No, I agree with you, Stephen, 100%. As long as as we got to do whatever is safe, right? And got to make sure that everybody feels safe, right? I'm a mask wearer myself. I definitely believe in keeping it very, very safe. So we'll see what happens when we get back to the waters, right? But I guess the in terms of restrictions and policies, my prediction, again, this is nothing official, but my prediction is it's just going to look very similar to how it looks in land. Another question: how late can one book a cruise?
Well,
72 hours prior?
Yes, actually, you probably could book it up until the day of. If you were to call reservations early in the morning, you may be able to, even though the manifest typically tends to go. But yeah,
Exactly.
the manifest tends to go. But if you were to keep, for example, if you called one of your advisors and the advisor says you don't have a guest that wants to jump on today, I mean, there's a possibility potentially to get them on.
I think the cutoff date is like 48 hours prior.
Yeah,
That's one of the things that changed after 9/11 or something.
Well, exactly. So, I mean, we could force it through if we had to, but yes, I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to go on, 48 hours, 48 hours after that. But, we could force things through if we had to, but yeah, we'll stick with the 48-hour rule there and then it just complicates everything.
Yeah. All right, let's open up the mics. Let's see who has a question, who wants to ask anything. Just go ahead and either raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or you can go ahead and unmute yourself and then ask away. By the way, Colin, I love your background. That virtual background love it.
Those are the Northern Lights, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you ready for our question?
Hi,
Yes, we are.
Great.
We've sailed Seabourn quite often and we love it. We noticed when you mentioned the Ovation and the Encore, you did not mention the Sushi Restaurant. Is that still going to be available?
Yes, yes. So the sushi restaurant is available. That is the additional restaurant that we have only on the Encore and on the Ovation. Yes. And as a matter of fact, I did another presentation earlier today. And as you probably know, you don't need reservations for sushi, even though it's quite small. So I would suggest that if you are on the Encore, the Ovation, and you wanted to have at sushi, you probably want to get there quite early because I believe there are about 36 seats up there for 600 guests. So you have to make sure that that you get there early. But yes, we will have, and I believe also on the Venture we will have a sushi restaurant as well on the new vessel.
Thank you.
Sure.
Here's a really good question from Terry. Airlines require, well, actually more than airlines, countries, right? Even the United States right now require a COVID test a few hours prior to arriving to the United States to be able to go into the United States. Can this be obtained on the ship before docking? Do you know if there's going to be testing on board?
You know, we haven't discussed the full return to service, so I don't know what that looks like. I would think that some countries are requiring it, so I would think that there would be an opportunity on board. But since we don't have an official return to service policy yet, I really can't comment because I just don't know what it will be. But I agree with you. There should be something that we would offer for the guests before arrival in the last port, if the port were to require it. But
Yeah,
we don't have,
sure.
yeah.
I'm sure that would be the case. Patricia has another question. Can you talk about excursions, size of the excursions, safety protections?
Sure, absolutely. So we do have shore excursions that we offer on all of our voyages. And then excursions above and beyond that, we also offer something called the Venture program. And the Venture are more of an active excursion. So that would be like kayaking. That would be like getting on the Zodiac, for example, in Alaska and going up to see the seals up close and personal. That would mean some hikes as well. All that is available and we will have them. Now, what it will look like moving forward, at least this year, I don't know. I don't know if there will be excursions where you can just, either do them on your own or if you can just get to a port and get off and just walk around the city. I don't know what that's going to look like on a return to service. But if we do something, I know that we were looking to go into the Caribbean last winter. We were looking to do kind of a bubble concept where there would be safety protocols, where it would be a Seabourn excursion. There would be a small number of guests. Our excursions typically don't go with that many guests, and that's just not what we do at Seabourn, to pack a bus of 40 or 50 guests. So our excursions would be quite small, and they would be just, we wouldn't be able to, it would be kind of like, some of you may remember what St. Petersburg, Russia was 20 years ago, where you were able to go, but you couldn't actually leave the excursion. You had to be with the group for safety. And I think that's what it'll look like, at least in the beginning, when we return to service.
I have a comment / question. I love literally almost everything on Seabourn. Nevertheless, high tea has never been to SN standards. In fact, on cruise critic websites, most people agreed. Do you plan changes? If not, please do.
Well, I know that we have added different teas, much more of a selection for 4 o'clock tea. And we do offer, of course, a tea service on all of our vessels up in the observation lounge. And it's interesting that they, obviously these are very avid tea drinkers, and we can actually tell the difference. And, what I would say is, if you've been on Seabourn, make sure that you're writing those comments to us, because again, what we don't know, we can't action. But we've had a whole year now of no service, so we've been able to go back and just really fine tune the product, and I believe that the afternoon tea is one of those experiences.
Yeah, and desserts as well.
Desserts,
yeah,
yes.
I know there's been a lot of talk about just kind of elevating that even more. So,
High tea.
it's interesting, right? Is again, one thing that I truly can say about Seabourn is just their ability to continue to improve and continue to get customer feedback, and continue to up their level of service and product. that's why we love recommending Seabourn. That's why we book so much of Seabourn, I guess, right? I mean, Seabourn is definitely up there with, top booking cruise lines, and it's just, anybody, most clients that we book on Seabourn just continue to come back and continue to refer other guests. Just makes our life so much easier because, generally speaking, the reviews are so great. Clients just thank us for putting them there, right? So,
Jesse,
Yes.
I have a question from Robert. And I know things change and all that. On the Ovation and Encore, you still have the sushi restaurant, right?
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. There you go, Robert.
So another question that I get all the time, Jesse, and since we can maybe use a little bit of time to talk about this. I get a lot of questions like, why should I book directly through a travel agency? Like, why not go directly to Seabourn? Why should I use a travel agency? Do you mind, answering that question for me real quick?
Sure. I think there is a misconception that if you come directly to the cruise line, you're going to get the deal. And that's not the case at all. We have strategically, we have strategic partnerships with the travel industry, particularly with Virtuoso and with partners like the Luxury Cruise Connection, where we give additional amenities by booking through these accounts. So there are things that you cannot get when you book through Seabourn directly that you can get through Carlos or through any of the advisors. And above and beyond that, the service of the advisor, you're talking about bookings that can cost anywhere between $20 to $30 to $100,000, just depending on the voyage. Do you really want to just give that money away to, a credit card number to somebody on the phone that you have no idea? You probably won't get that person again because in reservations, the call's always shifting. If there is a problem, who are you going to call? Now, of course, I think, I don't want to disparage the cruise line because I do work for Seabourn at the end of the day, and I think we do a pretty good job. But the fact is that there's a difference between calling Steve,
there.
for example.
Is it okay for me to send out Milano's?
Good question. I'll get this discombobulated there.
One second.
I want to hold off. I shouldn't hold off, but I want to hold off just a little bit.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Got it. Okay. Gosh, now I lost my. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. So yes. Here, what I want to say is that, for example, COVID, when COVID hit last year, and things went bonkers and the cruise lines were basically canceling voyages left and right, did you want to leave it to a person who you've never heard from before call you and say, the booking is canceled, and just kind of move on to the next one? Or do you want a travel advisor that can tell you the truth? Or here's what's going on. Steve, for example, say, here's what's going on with the cruise lines. Here's what we can do. Here are the alternatives. Here's what you can look forward to. Let me help you get some of this money back. There is a benefit. There's a huge benefit to working with a travel partner, especially ones like the ones at Luxury Cruise Connection, because they know the ins and out of the industry. And I know some of you are, maybe are fantastic at booking online, but when something goes wrong, what do you have to do? You have to call the 800 number and wait for someone in reservations to deal with it. And I think that if you have that connection with a travel advisor, you know that you're in good hands with them, and whatever amount of money you're spending on their voyage or on your vacation, you know that it's safe and they're administering it in the right place. They're not going crazy, and you're not going to get a voicemail for 2 or 3 days of, we'll get back to you shortly. Advisors, I can tell you from my end, because I get the calls all the time. Whenever they call reservations and there's an issue, the travel advisor calls me immediately and gets me involved. Most of you have no idea who I am. If you saw me in the street, you say, who's this guy from Seabourn? Do you work on board? But these advisors have that connection with us in sales, and we're able to go in and intercede and make that connection and work things out for you.
And on top of that, when it comes to, our ability to really provide our guests with a little bit more added value, we're part of Virtuoso. Virtuoso is the largest luxury consortium in the world. We leverage their negotiation power together with, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of bookings that we do, right? And we take all that leverage, right, or that negotiation power per se, and are able to, create some special added value amenities for our clients that otherwise wouldn't be available. So, we're definitely all about service, and we definitely want to make sure that those that are doing business with us, it's because they're enjoying the level of service. But, obviously when we're able to also, on top of delivering great service, be able to give our clients additional added value at no extra cost to you, then, then that makes it even sweeter, right?
Well, and I think also a guide, because as you said earlier, there are so many options, frankly, on the luxury cruise side. Yes, Seabourn is incredible, but there's also other brands out there, and you want to be able to know exactly what product is right for you. As we've been talking about before, luxury is different. Maybe you want a butler, and we don't offer that. So if we put you on, on Seabourn, you may be disappointed because you may be thinking, wow, I was expecting a butler. But with a travel advisor, you'll know exactly what it is that you're getting, and they'll be able to explain that to you because they go through these trainings. I'm sure that everyone who's here, the advisors, can actually do this presentation because they know the ins and outs of Seabourn. So,
well, at the end of the day, that's why we continue to call ourselves travel advisor, right? We don't call ourselves travel agents anymore. We're travel advisors. We're not the typical order takers, right? Yes, you call us and you say, hey, I want to go on this. Can you book this? You're most likely going to get, all right, no problem. Of course, I can absolutely book that for you. But, why do you want that? And the reason why I ask is I want to make sure that, I can add value and provide advice and make sure that, let's take advantage of our knowledge and our expertise to make sure that you're getting exactly what you're looking for. And so that's,
Hey, Carlos?
Yes.
Can I add something to what you and Jesse just said? The other thing that we are able to do, because our name is Luxury Cruise Connections, and for the guests who don't understand this, we are a division of Forest Travel, and we can assist them with their flights and pre and post cruise stays. So we're not just the cruise, we're everything that they might need, as well as travel insurance.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Steve. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And back again, the dreaded, if something were to happen, and it doesn't happen very often, but if something does, how about having that comfort of knowing that you can, somebody who you can call at any time and they can get that problem resolved for you.
And by the way, before I forget, for everybody that attended today's event, you'll have a $200 Seabourn credit certificate that you're going to get right after the event that you can use on your next Seabourn cruise. So we do that, for the next 2 weeks. You can use it for the next 2 weeks. Any Seabourn cruise that you book within the next 2 weeks through Luxury Cruise Connections, you're going to have this extra $200 Seabourn credit that we're going to be able to add to your account on top of any other promotion or perk that we can add as well.
Which, by the way, goes a long way for a virtually all-inclusive product.
For sure. But you can use that. You can use it for spa treatments. We can use that for shore excursions. We can use that for a bottle of wine. There's something a lot we can use it for. So yeah, I mean, we really value your time, and we thank you for coming and participating with us on this event. I mean, many of you have been following our events for the last year or so, year and a half now, whatever. And we're very happy to continue to see you on our events. We are going to continue to do more of these because we know you love them. And it's this open space for you to ask any questions. So, as we let Jesse get back to his job of taking care of more travel agencies, if you have any more questions, this is the time. And if any other questions arise after this is over, you can always email us, contact us at any time. We'll be happy to answer your question. And if we don't know the answer, then we can contact Jesse at any point and ask him, and make sure that we get you an answer. If you have a specific question about one of your specific cruises, either one that has been suspended that you had in the past, or something that you have in mind that are planning for the future, let us know. We'll be happy to help you. We're here for you. We're in this to make travel dreams come true, and we just love doing that. So, by the way, even if you booked with another travel agency, we don't mind. Just call us, ask us. We'll be happy to help you answer any questions. Obviously, we're a business, but we really love what we do, and we're really do this because we want to make your travel easier. So even if you're booked somewhere else, we'll be happy to help you. Even if you're booked directly with Seabourn, also, we'll be happy to help you as well. In fact, Jesse, what's Seabourn's policy for transferring
Yes, actually, I would encourage you, if you're booked through Seabourn directly, that you transfer it over. You know, as long as the deposit is in, we can transfer it. Once final payment is in, and then it becomes a little bit trickier. But if you've just deposited, we are able to move the booking over to a travel advisor.
Okay, Colin is asking us, do I get the credit if I already have a booking? Colin, you will get the credit, but it's probably going to have to be applied to a new booking. This certificate that we're offering is for new bookings. Is basically to encourage our guests, give our guests like an extra incentive to book something else. So hopefully, but you know, let us know what you have. We'll work something out for you. You know, we want to make you happy for sure. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. Fantastic.
All right,
It's been super productive, huh?
I gotta tell you that you have some of the best guests, really, because aside the fact of the level of engagement, just the fact that pretty much most of you have stayed on this long is it's quite amazing. And I just want to say, Diana, this is your first Zoom call, I think you said earlier when it started. So I just want to congratulate you for making it. You made it almost to 2 hours. So you did very, very good here. I just want to say again, a special thank you to everyone who participated. For our past guests, we love you. We can't wait to get you back on board our ships. We miss you, that's for sure. The crew are always excited whenever there's any kind of news for guests to return. And for those who haven't sailed, we would love to welcome you on board Seabourn. I think that if we meet your criteria, we will exceed your expectations, and you will absolutely want to return to Seabourn. And then finally, to Carlos and his team, thank you for being great partners with me personally, but with Seabourn as well. And we appreciate you, and we appreciate everyone, all of your advisors. You're all professionals, and we're not just co-workers, we're friends here. So thank you.
Jesse, thank you very, very much for being here. Again, those that stayed all the way through, thank you very much for staying with us, and thank you very much for participating. Again, any more questions, please feel free to email us, send them to us. We'll be happy to answer them. And that's it. That's it for today, guys. Thank you very, very much for being here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, Shay. Take care, Jess.